Something about episode 4 broke the pattern. Not completely. Not enough to ruin the season, but just enough to make people pause and question what Invincible is really trying to do. Because for the first time in a long time, the reaction wasn't unanimous. It wasn't, "This is amazing." It was divided. And that's rare for a show like Invincible. Think about it. For 3 straight seasons, this series has built a reputation for consistency. Brutal action, emotional storytelling, tight pacing. Every episode feels like it matters. Even when it slows down, it builds something. But episode 4, Herm, does something different. It takes Mark and pulls him completely out of the main story. And not just geographically, narratively. Suddenly, we're not dealing with Viltrumites. Not with Omni-Man. Not with the looming war that's been building for seasons. We're in hell, with Damien Darkblood.
Damien, always snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Facing a new villain, Volcanica. And for a moment, it almost feels like you're watching a different show. Now here's the thing. That kind of shift isn't automatically bad. In fact, some of the best episodes in television history are the ones that take risks like this. So why didn't this one land the same way? Well, something about the timing doesn't add up. Because this episode drops right when the tension is peaking, Alan and Omni-Man are heading to Earth. The Viltrumite War is about to explode. Everything is aligning for a massive turning point. And instead of pushing forward, the story pauses, detours, takes a side path. And that's where the filler criticism starts creeping in. Now, let's be real for a second. Filler is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot, sometimes unfairly. Not every side story is meaningless. Not every detour is wasted time. But here's the difference. A good side story still feels connected. It adds something, builds something, pays off later. So the real question is, did this episode feel like it mattered? For some viewers, yes. There are subtle layers here. Mark is putting on his original suit again, facing a different kind of threat. Stepping into a world that isn't just physical, but moral. Hell, in this context, isn't just a location, it's symbolic. It forces Mark to confront something deeper. What kind of hero is he when the rules change? But for others, that wasn't enough. Because the emotional payoff didn't match the narrative interruption. And that's where the divide begins. Now let's talk about Damien Darkblood. Because this is where things get really interesting. His return should have been exciting. He's one of those characters that always felt like there was more to explore, more mystery, more potential. And this episode finally gives him that spotlight. But instead of feeling like an expansion of the world, it feels like a separate story trying to merge into the main one. And maybe it's just too early. Or too late. Because timing matters more than anything. If this episode had come earlier in the season...
Wait, you didn't bring me to hell to fight Satan.
Before the war started building momentum, would the reaction have been different? Probably. If it had been saved for later, as a breather after a major arc. Would it feel more earned? Maybe. But placed right here? It interrupts, and once that feeling sets in, it's hard to ignore. Now here's where things shift from reaction to consequence, because one divisive episode doesn't break a show, but it does send a message. And the creators are definitely listening, so what happens next? Do they double down on this storyline? Continue Damien's arc, expand Hell, bring in even bigger supernatural elements? Or do they pull back, refocus on the Viltrumite War, stick closer to the source material, avoid taking risks like this again? Because make no mistake, this wasn't just a random episode. This was the show stepping outside the comics, trying something new. And that's a big deal. But here's the problem. When you take that kind of risk, you don't get neutral reactions. You either gain something powerful, or you create doubt. And right now, there's doubt. Let's talk about the bigger picture. Invincible has already been confirmed for another season. So this isn't about cancellation or failure. It's about direction. What kind of show does it want to be moving forward? Because up until now, the formula has been clear.
If only this one had the powers of...
Adapt the comics. Enhance where needed. Make small changes, but always stay grounded in that core story. Episode 4 challenges that. It asks, what if we go further? What if we tell stories the comics never did? What if we expand the universe in ways fans don't expect? And that's exciting, but also dangerous. Because not every fan wants something new. Some want fidelity, consistency, the story they already love just brought to life. So now the show is in a difficult position. Do you innovate or do you preserve? And this is where it gets even more complicated. Because this isn't the first time Invincible has changed things. Shrinking Ray survived when she didn't in the comics. Amber was reinterpreted. Damian himself has been expanded. Even smaller characters have been adjusted in meaningful ways. And most of those changes worked over time. Which raises an important question. Is the problem really the change itself, or just how it was introduced? Because there's a version of this storyline where Damian's arc becomes one of the most compelling parts of the show, where hell isn't a distraction, but a crucial layer, where everything connects in a way that makes this episode feel essential in hindsight. But that version doesn't exist yet, and that's the risk. Because first impressions matter. And right now, the first impression is mixed. There's also another thread here that people aren't talking about enough, Kahor. For seasons, he's been this background detail, almost a joke, a piece of world building that didn't seem important. And suddenly, he matters. He escapes. He takes a host. And just like that, another original storyline is quietly being set up. So now we have two paths diverging from the comics, Hell and Kahor. And that leads to a bigger question. Is Invincible slowly becoming its own story? Not just an adaptation, but something new entirely? Because if it is, then episodes like this aren't mistakes, they're experiments. But experiments come with risk. Some succeed, some don't. And some divide the audience right down the middle. So here's the turning point. Not in the episode, but in how we understand it. This isn't just the most divisive episode of Invincible. It's a test. For the creators, for the audience, for the future of the show. Because what happens next will define everything. Do they commit to these new ideas and build them into something great? Or do they retreat and play it safe? And maybe the real question isn't whether episode 4 was good or bad. Maybe it's this. Are fans ready for Invincible to evolve beyond the story they already know? Because if the answer is no, then this episode might just be remembered as a misstep. But if the answer is yes, then we might be looking at the beginning of something much bigger. Something riskier, something unpredictable, and maybe something even better, or maybe not. And that uncertainty, that's what makes this moment so important.